there was a little boy, and he was saying his prayers, and he was praying out loud for what he wanted for Christmas. And his sister said, "You don't have to pray so loud. God can always hear you." And the little boy replied, "I know God can hear me. It's grandmother I'm worried about." So today we have 11 shopping days left. Oh. And some of us haven't even started. And today is the third Sunday of Advent. Now, Advent is a Christian tradition that is not biblically based, but it comes out of the old church. It runs from St. Andrew's Day through Christmas. It runs from the Sunday after Thanksgiving through Christmas. And Advent is a time to prepare ourselves for Christmas, to get ready for Christmas. And for the last 2 Sundays, we didn't do Advent. So this Sunday and next Sunday, we're doing Advent in double time. And it's sort of like getting all that Christmas shopping done on Christmas Eve. Now, there are 4 traditional attributes or qualities or words that are associated with Advent. And they are hope, peace, love, and joy. And sometimes it's faith, peace, love, and joy. And so when I was on Thursday, when Mary Jane asked me what I was going to speak about, I said, I guess I'm speaking about faith and peace. But I believe that if you got our Advent booklet, you'll know that we're talking about hope and peace. Now, when I was a young person, or all through my life, my parents gave me many great gifts. But I particularly remember one year, the year I was a senior in high school, that I got 2 books that were gifts, and they were great gifts because they were spiritual gifts. One of the books I got was The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol, and the other one was Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. Any of you read any of those? Yeah, some of you are old enough to have seen them. Both of these books talk about the importance of having a positive attitude. They talk about the importance of holding on to positive expectations. Holding on to positive expectations, HOPE. And that's what the Christmas celebration is all about. Hope and our ability to have and hold on to positive expectations. That's the good news of the New Testament. Jesus taught us that the kingdom of God is where? At hand, right here, right now. He taught us that each one of us is a beloved child of God. And yes, at Christmas we celebrate the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. But the challenge for us is to let that Christ Spirit to be born in us again and again and again. Christian mystic Angelus Silesius said, though Christ is 1,000 times in Bethlehem be born, if he's not born in thee, thy soul is forlorn. I want to repeat that because I kind of stumbled on it. Though Christ 1,000 times in Bethlehem be born, if he's not born in thee, thy soul is forlorn. This year, we approach Christmas with positive expectations, knowing that Christmas comes when we can believe the unbelievable, when we can see the invisible, when we can love the unlovable, when we can heal the incurable, when we can understand the misunderstood, when we can bless those that are cursed, when we can learn that which is difficult, when we can know in our heart the unknown, when we can accept the intolerable, teach the unteachable, and cleanse the unclean, hear the unheard, remember the forgotten, and do the impossible. Because that's what Jesus taught us to do. Jesus' teachings are of God's unconditional love for us all that gives us hope. Jesus' teachings give us hope, the ability to hold on to positive expectations. And he didn't exclude anyone. He didn't exclude the tax collector, the thief, or anyone else. He said that they were children of God just as much as the priests and the Pharisees. And so what does that mean to you and to me? It means that no matter what we've done in life, no matter what mess we've made, we are still beloved children of God. And is there a better gift than that? What could give us more hope than that? That's why most of us are here this morning. We're here to think and rethink Christianity, to think and rethink our own personal beliefs, to think and rethink our personal theologies. We're here to know the truth, to know it in our hearts, and to have God be real in our lives. Most of us are here to have Christmas be alive in us this year and every year, this day and every day. There's a strip that up there with beautiful writing, that calligraphy on the wall. Christ in you, the hope of glory. That's from Colossians 1:27. Paul said it. Christ in you, the hope of glory. We're here to acknowledge the divine, the Christ Spirit that lives within each of us. We're here to let the Christ Spirit be alive and active in our lives. And so you say, well, Beth, how do I do that? How do I let Christ be alive? How do I let Christ be active in my life? And I say that you do it by adopting spiritual practices. There's that word. Practice, practice, practice. You know all about that. Because a master at your craft, you practice and you practice and you practice. We had a concert here Friday night, and Aaron Abu said that his mom made him play the saxophone 30 minutes every day and make his bed. And so he says when kids ask him, how did he get to be where he is, the great musician he is now? 30 minutes every day and make your bed. And one of the most important practices that you and I can do is this practice of hope, holding on to positive expectations. In Revealing Word, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, said that hope is the expectation of good in the future. And if we practice hope, holding on to positive expectations, if we practice hope, hope will become faith. And faith is the knowledge that the good we want is already ours right now, even when we can't see it. But to build that faith muscle, we must practice hope. Jesus said, whatever you ask for in prayer, with faith, you will receive. He didn't say, whatever you ask for, you receive. For us to receive, we have to expect to receive. And we have to expect to receive until the time comes when we know without a doubt that what we have asked for is indeed ours. To receive whatever we ask for, we have to hold on to positive expectations. And you know, whether we're holding on to positive expectations or not shows up in our language. It shows up in our words. How many times do we say, I want a new job, I've prayed for a new job, and then turn around and say, no one's hiring right now. All of the jobs in the newspaper are for engineers. How many times do we say, but there are not any more good jobs, they're all taken? Or maybe we say, I want to be prosperous. I want abundance in my life. And in the very next breath, we're saying, oh, those big corporations, they're so terrible. The stock market's down. My employer's not giving raises. I'm on a fixed income. The Republicans are in power. The Democrats are in power. The unemployment rates are up. The retail sales are down. Maybe what we want is to be healed in our body. And in one breath we say, God is healing me now. But in the next breath we're talking, well, God, the doctor says this. And I looked on the internet and, oh, there is no chance. Holding on to positive expectations is a spiritual practice. And the reason it's called a practice is just because of that. It's something we have to do over and over and over again. We have to hold on to positive expectations until they become the truth of our being. And if you have trouble being hopeful, I would suggest that maybe we look at our past. We've just passed Thanksgiving, and at Thanksgiving time we talk about all that we're grateful for. And so every time that we talk about using a gratitude journal, what we're doing is saying, let's record all the times that our positive expectations have been fulfilled. Let's keep a record. Let's keep a spiritual inventory so that we can know as we look ahead of all the good things that have happened in the past. Have you ever worked with someone who was really negative? I think we all have. Someone that had no hope. You know, what I have found in my past is that, you know, the thoughts you feed are the thoughts that grow. And I worked with someone who was very negative. And pretty soon, I expected things to be late, to be wrong. I expected people to be uncooperative. What had been a pretty good job became fairly painful. And soon, I hated my job just as much as my coworker did. In his mind, everything was a disaster. The world was a disaster. And pretty soon, after I listened to that 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day, I was feeling that way too. I had become hopeless because I hadn't been holding on to positive expectations. But lucky for me, where I was working, one day I drove past a Unity church. Oh my gosh. Now, I had been to a Unity church and I had read things, but I had let that lapse. Have you ever let a practice lapse? And I went in and I got a daily word. And I started reading the daily word, and I went to a class and I went to church. And it didn't take me long to realize that I had to change my thoughts. That I couldn't pay so much attention to my coworker. And it was really hard. I would go to church on Sunday and I would feel great. I'd say affirmations and things would be better on Monday. But by Wednesday, I had found I was falling right back into that pattern of being miserable. However, in the meantime, I kept telling my coworker about Unity, thinking that would help me. I brought daily words to him. I'd leave affirmations accidentally on his desk. Didn't work at all. But finally, one day, I challenged him on a Monday when he started in. I said, let's see how many good days we can have. And I took out a calendar, and every day we would talk about the day before, and we would talk about what made it good or what made it not so good. And I put an arrow on that calendar, either an up arrow or a down arrow. It's hard to say. And every morning we would talk about the day, and soon our talk changed. It started being about what can we do to make this an up arrow day. And before long, we noticed that we had more up days than we had down days. Pretty soon, most of the days were up days. And the funny thing is, our supervisor noticed it. We both got great reviews and great raises. The power of hope became a truth to us. No longer was it something we read about. No longer was hope something that just for the Pollyannas of the world. We had tangible proof that life is not determined by things outside of us. It's determined by the thoughts we held in our mind. And we started to realize that our lives, my life and your life, is the thoughts we have times 365 days. If they're happy and positive, we're a happy, positive person. And if they're not so happy and positive, then we're a pretty negative person. We realized that we had the power, that we could change our day, our week, our month, our years, and our whole life. And we talked about that. We came from two totally different theological perspectives. And yet we could meet there in the middle and talk about how we had changed what was happening in our lives at work. We learned how to control our thoughts. We chose to think positive thoughts. We learned to hold on to positive expectations. And so I know today that if I look at the news, that hope is even more important than ever. For everything I see on the news, I have to turn it in my mind and find a positive expectation. A positive expectation is like a spiritual vitamin, a mental vitamin. And so this year, if you and I find that we aren't enjoying this Christmas season, maybe it's time to take our gratitude journals out. Maybe it's time to take a calendar and start marking our days up or down. Anytime we start feeling hopeless, we can make a decision to hope. We can begin to retrain ourselves so that this time next year, we will have 365 times the positive thoughts. We celebrate Christmas because Jesus fully understood his divinity, his spiritual nature, and he taught us that we too have that spiritual nature. And by holding on to positive expectations, we build our spiritual power of faith. It was the spiritual practice of hope and the power of faith that gave Jesus the ability to demonstrate the peace that is the second Advent lesson. And peace is another practice that you and I get to adopt. In every moment, we get to choose peace or fear. We get to choose to let go of our old beliefs and habits. With hope, we choose peace. And there's a bond, and this is why I wanted to wear the other mic, because I can't do this. There's a bond between hope and peace. With hope, it's pretty easy to choose peace. But when we're without hope, it's easy to let go of peace. And we see this in ourselves, we see it in our families, in our communities, and we see it in our nation. Anytime a group of people feel hopeless, they lash out in anger. And yes, some of the anger and lashing out can be a learned mechanism. I'm thinking about my 4-year-old great-granddaughter. If Claire wants something, she'll do it. She'll talk about it. She'll give all the reasons she should be able to do it. You know, and if it doesn't happen, eventually she stomps her feet, or she cries, or she hits something. And have you ever tried to reason with a 4-year-old? I have been so impressed by watching her mother, Danielle, step in and change the dynamics of Claire's life by giving her some alternatives, by giving her some choices. She wants this, and Danielle says, well, you want this or this. She takes her mind off the problem and restores her hope, restores her to having positive expectation. Danielle is modeling for Claire that her peace can be restored by moving away from that which is troublesome toward that which is positive. To where she does have some control. Away from where she doesn't have control to where she does. Unfortunately, all of our children don't get the luxury of that kind of parenting. The only thing they know how to do is to get angry, to lash out, to stomp their feet, or break windows and start fires. For there to be peace in the world, people need hope and they need faith. And those of us who have hope and consequently have faith have a duty to model this. And that's why this Unity of Melbourne community has been so invested in classes like Eye of the Storm. Why we have encouraged you to take and retake and take again the art and practice of living with nothing and no one against you. To learn the skills in Be Peace, which is now we're calling the connection practices, to learn them and then use them. It's why we want to see the connection practice in our schools. We want to see it in our schools not so that we can say we got it there. We want to see it in our schools so that we give children the ability to make another choice, for them to be able to move away from a place of anger to a place of peace. We want to bring hope and faith and peace into our community. There are wonderful stories about hope and faith and peace in the Bible. And in both the New Testament and Old Testament, there are stories about storms at sea. In the New Testament, every story about a disciple on a boat is a metaphysical story about faith and peace. In every case that there's a storm, the storm subsides, peace happens, and divine order is restored. And why does it happen? How does it happen? Faith. And Jesus demonstrates and models that practice of holding on to a positive expectation. He demonstrates that power of faith. And you and I can do it too. No matter the character of the storm in our life, we too can say, peace, be still. I deny that this situation has any power over me. I hold on to the truth that there is only one presence and one power in my life, God the good. And no matter the appearance, I know that there is a way through, over, or around the storm. If we hold on to positive expectations, we can restore peace in our lives. And that, my friends, is really the truth.